My name is Hans de Grys. I'm a science teacher. I'm currently the academic dean at Lakeside School in Seattle. I've been birding about 25 years. I would say my spark bird is the owl that my wife and I saw the first time we went out birding together.
What advice would you give to a beginning birder?
Birding is about enjoyment. And so I think, if you're not having fun, maybe you're not doing it right. So really, think about ways of birding that bring you joy, that you find engaging and interesting. For me personally, I like seeing birds, of course, but I like being out in nature. So anytime I can be in a beautiful place and have a nice walk, the birds that I see there seem so much more, meaningful and interesting. So I enjoy, occasionally going to the dump or, going to places that aren't necessarily beautiful or, sometimes doing some birding from my car. But that's not what drew me into birding, and that's not what keeps me interested in birding.
What cool or rare birds have you seen in Seattle recently?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say we saw the snowy owl that was on Queen Anne a couple years ago, and that was cool to see them in the city of Seattle. And I also just enjoy just watching birds out my window. So I had a white-throated sparrow that came to my bird feeder last winter, and not super rare by Seattle standards, but just one that I hadn't seen here on campus before. And so it's really fun just to see things that are locally uncommon.
Yeah, my friend actually lives across the street from where the snowy owl was.
That's cool.
What's the rarest bird you've ever seen?
The rarest bird I've ever seen? Wow. Well, I think, when birders talk about rare birds, I think they can use that expression or that term in two different ways. You can talk about things that are just not where they're supposed to be. So I think about the swallowtail gull that was here in Seattle and Edmonds, whenever that was, a couple years ago. And that's a bird that's not necessarily globally super rare, but just, the number of sightings from the United States is really small. So I think about birds like that. And then I also think about birds where just the total global population isn't very big. And so, whooping cranes that I've seen down in Texas on their wintering grounds, and Kirtland's warbler, where there just aren't that many total individuals in the world.
What's the longest you ever waited to see one bird? Like on a stakeout or something?
Yeah. The longest, I don't know about the actual number of minutes that were the longest, but I took my son birding when he was about 8, and he really wanted to see this blue bunting that was showing up in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. And we waited and waited and waited. It was probably only maybe 3 hours or so. But just his excitement and anticipation, and then as it dragged on, him getting a little bored and squirrely, and it was a beautiful little park. But I just remember thinking that it felt like a long time when I kept asking him, do you want to go someplace else? Do you want to check out some other things? And he wanted to stay and wait. And then it finally did show up just for a couple seconds. It just kind of blasted through this little bush, and we got a quick look, which was really satisfying. So I don't know if that was the longest in terms of number of minutes, but it felt the longest.
Yeah, it's amazing how time can fly.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of people would say birding is too slow paced or takes too long. How would you convince someone that it's really entertaining, even though it can be a lot of waiting?
Right. I would say maybe if it feels boring or it doesn't feel interesting, maybe you're not doing it right. I think people have to find the kind of birding, as I mentioned earlier, that feels right for them. For some people, it's waiting for that super rare bird to show up, and if they get a lot of excitement out of that, then that's great. That's not mostly me. So I think I would rather go on and see some other things and see what's around the next bend. And I think oftentimes you're rewarded by those experiences. I used to think when I first started birding that if I didn't see a brand new bird, or if I didn't see that rare bird that I wanted to see, that it was kind of like time wasted. And as I've gotten more experience, I enjoy the common birds more. and I'm watching like what are they doing, and are they making some different vocalization, and are they eating something that I haven't seen them eat before. And so, finding pleasures and inspiring new tidbits in the ordinary, I think, has become really meaningful for me, because like I don't go out in Seattle anymore and see lifers, but that doesn't mean I don't have a great time. So if you're finding a particular aspect of birding to be frustrating or boring or whatever, maybe try a different tactic.
Mm-hmm. Do you like birding in the same place every time, or like different places each time?
That is a good question. My little neighborhood patch is Juanita Bay Park, and I don't know how many times I've been there, probably 100 times. And I just really, on the one hand, enjoy going back there, because you never know what you're going to see. I saw turkey vultures there for the first time this past weekend, so I probably like on my 100th visit was the first time I had seen turkey vultures there. So it's fun to watch how the same place changes through the seasons, to watch the ducks come back in the fall, and to watch the shorebirds come through, and to see what woodpeckers are around. But it's also really fun to go someplace new and different. And so I also really enjoy, when I'm on vacation or when I have a chance to travel, to go someplace I haven't been before and, check that out. And seeing the new birds is fantastic. And I also really enjoy checking out the habitats and seeing what birds are in each kind of habitat, and how that relates to other birds I've seen, in different marshes or different coniferous forests or different beaches, to do some comparing and contrasting. I think that's super interesting.
What do you think are the underrated birding spots in Seattle?
Ooh, underrated birding spots. Well, like I said, I think if, for birders who are near the north end or the east side, I think Juanita Bay Park is fantastic. Has a variety of different habitats, and you see lots of different things there. So I love going there. I don't know if it's underrated, but I think West Seattle is a really cool place to see a bunch of really fun birds. I like walking along the shore there and looking at the harlequin ducks and just seeing what's happening out there. So I think those are two places, and it's not in Seattle, but Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually Refuge, is a fantastic place that I like to go. That's about an hour from Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been there. It's super cool. I was there in high tide, so I didn't see all the cool birds.
Mm-hmm.
You have a blog, or you used to operate a blog called Periodic Wanderings.
Mm-hmm.
Promote it.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough about a decade ago. Lakeside gave me a sabbatical, which basically said they were going to hold on to my job, that I could take some time off, and I could have my job back when I came back the next year. But they gave me the year off to kind of do a little bit of traveling and a little bit of birding. So I did some things related to education, but I also went out and really tried to see as many birds as I could on the pretty limited budget that I had for that year. And the blog was just a way for me to reflect a little bit about what I was seeing, to post some kind of mediocre pictures of the birds that I was seeing, to sort of document this experience that I was having, which on one level was about just doing some things that were different and enjoying nature, but also really kind of reflecting on where I was in my trajectory as a science educator, and what things I was thinking about for the future. So it's really fun to do some writing about birds and taking some pictures and threading together a narrative arc of what I was seeing and doing. And when I finished my sabbatical, I took a couple more trips in the following years, and I wrote up some of them as well.
Yeah, it's a great blog. You should check it out. Also, if you're interested in a big year on a budget, check out my interview with Christian Hagenlocker, who also did a similar thing. I found this duck at Green Lake, and for the listeners at home, click the link in the show notes if you want to see a picture. It'll send you to our Instagram where you can see the photo. So I was at Green Lake and I found this really crazy looking duck. Look at this guy.
Very cool.
He's like blue and black.
Yeah.
It's super weird. Do you know what's going on?
That is pretty fantastic. So it's related to a mallard. I think it's a domesticated duck. There's of course the wonders of natural evolution, where we get sort of all of these wild species, and then humans have replicated this process on a small scale by taking domestic waterfowl and breeding them for particular traits. And so I don't know exactly what that is, but it's some sort of either specific breed of domesticated duck, or more likely, some sort of crossbreeding or hybrid of, some kind of specific domestic duck with some wild ducks. But it is beautiful and fantastic. A lot of them are related to the mallard. Mm-hmm. Like the mallard is their sort of wild type ancestor.
Yeah, I also saw. I'm trying to find the right photo. This will also be in the Instagram. Yeah, here it is. So here's a male mallard, but it has a lot of female-looking feathers. Why is that?
What time of year was this?
It was September, mid-September.
So probably what's going on here is this is a male mallard that's coming out of eclipse, and so in late summer, early fall, after the breeding season, a lot of ducks will lose their flight feathers, and they lose them all at once. And so as a form of camouflage, they will also, as they're molting their body feathers, they will molt into a plumage that looks more like the female ducks, to allow them to sort of hide during this relatively short period where they're flightless. And then as the fall wears on, they're growing in those new body feathers back, and they relatively quickly the males transition back into what we think of as sort of a male mallard plumage. So I think what's going on there is, you can see by the bill color that this is a male, and I think he's just molting out of eclipse and into his regular breeding plumage or alternate plumage.
Huh. What species go into eclipse?
I think that's normally a term that we use, for ducks, particularly ducks that are sexually dimorphic, where the males and females are different. And so certainly you see it in mallards, you see it in like widgeon, you see it in a lot of the teal, like the green-winged teal. So it's just a feature where, for a brief period of time, it looks like the males have gone away. And they haven't really gone away. They're just molting their body feathers to a female type plumage, and then within a month or two they kind of molt back.
All right, well, thank you for your interview.
You're welcome.